Hey guys, it's Alex with Hammond Watch. I'm here today with the Steeldive 1970. It's their Seiko Captain Willard Homage. And it's a watch that I'd been reluctant to purchase for a while just because it was so popular and had already been in so many videos. But I wanted to share it with you today, do a real quick video, run through the specs, take a peek inside and give you my thoughts on the piece. You're looking at a 44mm case if you exclude the crown guards, and then if you include them, you're looking at 48.5mm. You have a thickness of 13.75mm, with about 3.5mm of that being this coin edge bezel. I love how pronounced it is. It's very easy to grip, easy to operate, and I love just the aesthetic of the side profile. You have about another millimeter sticking up in the form of that sapphire crystal. So I do worry that in time this will end up getting nicked, but for the price of the watch, I don't think it's a huge deal. You have a 6.5mm screw down crown. It is signed with the Steeldive logo, which is the dive mask, tanks, and then the cross flippers. You have a lug tip to lug tip of 47mm. But if you measure kind of at the spring bars when the strap is off for that effective lug to lug, you're looking at closer to 36.5. The lug width is a standard 20mm. The strap here, it's just okay. A mild taper, kind of basic hardware, and while it's soft enough, this watch is absolutely a strap monster. So this is very quickly going back into the box, and we'll try it out on a few other options. The back of the watch features a screw down case back, just general branding, Steeldive, automatic movement, 200 meters, and then of course their logo. I am a pretty big fan of their logo. I think they did a nice job, although it looks a little bit funny when they incorporate it onto some of their pilot watches. But all things considered, I think it's a really good effort. One thing to note, in the little crevices and some of these intricate spots, you are going to have buildup of skin and hair. It's just going to get a little bit dirty over time. I've been wearing this for a couple of weeks, wanted to make sure I had a good kind of well-rounded view of it before I made the video. You have this nice little undercut that's polished, making it easier to grip the crown. If I had one complaint about the operation of the watch, sometimes this crown is a little bit tricky to get at. That said, it's not something you have to adjust very often, so that's a relatively small gripe. Powering this watch is Seiko's NH35A, and I must say I'm pretty impressed. The internals here all look to be in great condition. Everything looks very clean, nothing looks over lubricated. And other AliExpress watches that I've had, sometimes this is an area where you'll have a little bit of grime, but everything here looks top notch. There is a small plastic ring helping to keep everything situated, but that's to be expected at this and honestly much higher price points as well. It's just kind of standard operating procedure. But I do appreciate that they did form this case to really house this movement perfectly. While Steeldive didn't have to do much in way of design with this watch, as it's kind of a straightforward copy, they did do a pretty good job with execution. By no means is the watch perfect. There are some finishing inconsistencies on the hand and indices, and if you're really getting nitpicky, you can see that the lume plots have just slightly different shades of that luminescent material, but in general, it's not really something you notice in day-to-day wear. And considering that you're going to have some of these inconsistencies on Seiko watches, where you will pay 5, 6, 7 times the cost of this watch, I think it absolutely gets a pass. Also, I really enjoy that they kept this minutes or seconds ring printing on the dial. Having this all black kind of chapter ring around the dial really gives them a little bit of leeway when it comes to quality control. The bezel technically is probably just a hair off to the right, but it's hard to tell when you're using the watch on a daily basis just because there is kind of that buffer in between. I don't think it looks as good on the blue and green variants because they have a bit of a hard time matching the exact colors. But on this black version, I think it looks stellar. And honestly, I think it's a strategy that Seiko might want to employ on some of their lower end divers if they're not going to work on their own quality control issues. I truly am blown away at the Lume application here. Easily the best I've seen under $100, and probably in the running for best under $500, to be honest with you. You could nitpick and say that the hands are a touch darker than the indices, but either way, nice vivid green glow all around. Icy blue finish inside of the ceramic bezel insert. Incredibly long lasting, definitely going to be a watch that makes it all the way through the night. And really, I wouldn't change a single thing about what they've done here. Here we are on my 7.5 to 7 3/4 inch wrist. The watch wears beautifully. It's got a nice substantial footprint, as you'd kind of expect from a dive watch of this size. But having a relatively compact lug to lug means there's no overhang, and it certainly fits. The undercuts on the case make it very comfortable when you're moving your wrist around. Nothing's digging in. And this crown guard is actually incredibly soft, so you don't really notice it, and it certainly doesn't hurt the top of your hand. The strap is comfortable enough. I think it's a fairly decent product, but at the end of the day, this watch is truly a strap monster, and I think that there are some better routes to go. While I don't go leather on divers very often, this watch can certainly pull it off. Its vintage styling lends very well into that aesthetic. Also, it gives it a bit of a dressy appeal, especially with the luster of that ceramic bezel insert. That said, my preference on this particular watch would be to wear it with a NATO strap. It's not so thick that you can't pull it off. Still wears extremely comfortable, and you get a little bit of that vintage aesthetic that you would get from the leather strap, but a little bit more in the way of water resistance, and I think it just suits this piece really well. In general, I think this is probably the best watch value in the market today. I'm pretty big on the Escapement Time Flieger with its thermally blued hands, but I've seen that price creep up while this has kind of remained at exactly where it started. As long as you wait for a sale on AliExpress, you're looking at picking this up for just under 75 bucks. You know, I think at their last 11/11 sale, this cost me right around 74. It took about 4 weeks to arrive, and getting it in hand, it is just incredibly impressive. You know, the crown can be a little bit of a pain to operate. The bezel has a little bit of play, but in general, the action of it feels really good. It's got a nice snap to it. It doesn't feel overly kind of cheap or tinny by any stretch. You know, you're going to have some misalignment, but in general, it's not something that you're going to notice too much. And again, for 75 bucks, it's kind of hard to turn your nose up at it when, you know, I think we've all experienced paying far beyond that for a Seiko with the same issue. The finishing is actually quite nice. Pretty bare bones on the bottom as far as, you know, the design of the case, but you don't notice it on wrist. It feels plenty smooth. So I would certainly recommend the purchase. If you guys have enjoyed this quick look at the Steeldive 1970, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. It really helps in YouTube's algorithm. Also consider subscribing. I put watch content out weekly at a minimum, and I hope to see you in the next one.